Special counsel, please call the roll.
Director Howard.
Here.
Director Duplessis. Director Pacho.
Here.
Director Shulis. Director Kennedy.
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum.
Okay, good. So we'll now proceed. We have two presentation items. The first one is Smart Metering Program Update. Caitlin Timrick, Deputy GSO, and Rebecca Johnsey, Principal Engineer, will give the presentation. So who's going to start?
It will be me.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me back. We're going to give a smart meter update overview on how we are. So I'll start with a little refresher that I'm sure y'all know by heart now, but just so that we have it fresh in your minds. Again, our smart metering program is also considered AMI, Advanced Metering Infrastructure, and it is a complicated system of meters and technology and communication vehicles. We're very excited about this technology, as I know all of you are as well. You can see our meters on the screen that we use. Our iPearl and Ally meters are for our 5/8 inch and 1 inch customers. That's around 138,000 of our population. And our Omni meters are for our larger meter customers. So this is 2 inch and up. We have about 1,600 of those customers in our population. Again, this is a refresher of how this technology works. We are installing the meter in the existing meter box. We are changing out the lid, so you'll see a mushroom cap on the top of the lid. This allows the usage to automatically be sent up through the network. This is hourly usage. It's collected, stored in the software, and then sent to our billing software as well as to our customer portal. We have made a lot of progress on our installations. We currently have over 45,000 smart meters installed throughout the city. This is the dashboard that you can see that's up on our landing page. So every dot in blue means that an installation was completed at that location. Every dot in yellow means there's an installation planned within the next 3 months. We do it in 3-month increments because, as we are all aware here, especially after last week, all of those can change based on weather events. So we keep it within 3 months, and then every 3 months it refreshes. One of the things that's really great about this technology is the accuracy of the technology. So the meters that we're putting in the ground are static meters. So this means there's no moving parts on the inside. So what that allows the manufacturers to do is to guarantee the accuracy within 1.5% of the actual flow rate for its entire battery life. So all 20 years that these meters are to be in the ground, they remain accurate. Every smart meter that we receive has been tested by the factory and comes with that factory warranty. We also pull old mechanical meters out of the ground, and never have any of our tests comes back as an over-registration. They only under-register. The reason this happens is that mechanical meters have moving parts on the inside, gears that move, and over time, they get clogged up and they're not moving as efficiently, thus they under-register the actual usage. The majority of the meters that we test actually under-register by over 30% of the actual flow rate. I know you've heard this. Last time we were here, we were talking about potential billing impacts. As you know, because our meters are well beyond their useful life, we anticipated that on average, every customer's bill would potentially increase. Please keep in mind this is on average. Some customers had newer meters. Everyone uses their water differently. So we put out a lot of communication with customers so they anticipated what these impacts would be. We have a video up live to talk to customers about this. We have a landing page that has more information. And another step that we took to be proactive is to cap the first bill that has smart meter data on it. So that first bill is capped to 120% of the customer's annual average to help ease into the transition, or if any unexpected usage was picked up that wasn't picked up by the mechanical meters, they'd have time to get that rectified.
Rebecca.
Yeah.
Some of the continuing errors in building, they're not really due to smart meters, they're due to something else, right?
Right, so when it transitions over to a smart meter bill, it's actually an entirely different billing path with a different team that handles that bill. So the things that have happened historically with the estimates and things like that, they're actually handled separately. So once you have a smart meter bill, it's a separate group that handles your bill from there on. That doesn't mean that issues that were previously existent, that disputes evaporate. We still have to work through that backlog of disputes.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Thanks.
So this is really important, and I want to talk about this. So this is leak detection. So because this technology is so accurate, we can actually see when a drip, one single drip is going through that meter. We've witnessed it. You can see as that drip adds up, and then the number increases. Our old mechanical meters weren't able to capture these low flows. So what this means is our new technology can really capture any of those small potential leaks. The most common leak is a toilet flapper. So toilet flappers are only good for 2 years. If you don't remember changing out your toilet flapper, it might be leaking. It's a really easy test. You can put dye in the back of your toilet. If it bleeds through into the bowl, your toilet flapper is leaking. We are being very proactive in our communication. We're talking about metrics so people understand what some of these usages are. One of the things that we talk about a lot with customers is irrigation. If you are running irrigation for an hour every day, that's 1,000 gallons used during that hour. So if you're running that every day, you can see how that runs up very quickly on your usage and how that can severely impact your bill. Generally speaking, another thing that surprises people is when you have house guests. The more people in your house, the more water you're going to use. It generally translates 1-to-1. So when we talk with customers and they're surprised by a bill going up, we can say, what happened during these dates? Was anything unusual? Usually we hear, oh yes, we had friends in town, right? And so then their usage goes up. So this tool is really allowing us to communicate much more effectively with customers. One thing that we also have is we've been sending out a potential leak letter. So we've been doing these once a month since May. We've been very successful up until this last week, which I'll talk about. But when we basically determine there's water going through your meter for 48 hours, 4 gallons per hour. So this translates to a $38 out on your bill. We're sending customers a letter as a courtesy to say, hey, something unusual is going on. Here are steps you can take proactively, right? A lot of these steps don't require hiring a plumber. You can go check it out. The most common leaks are in the toilet, leaking faucets, dripping outside. If you have a hose bib, oftentimes those break. It's a really easy way to see, hey, you've got a drip. These things really can add up over time.
What about the letters that went out that shouldn't have gone out?
Yeah, so
Causing problems.
yes, so last week we had a report that was run and there were some errors in the report. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it wasn't all incorrect. So about 20% of the letters that were generated were accurate. The problem is that the other 80% were not. So we found out, customers received these letters on Thursday or Friday of last week. We found out on Sunday, it was reported to us there was a potential error. So we worked through Sunday and on to Monday to find out how many customers were affected. So we've already sent emails to all of those customers that were affected to explain the error in communication. Our customer service reps know exactly what had gone on. The good news is that this is a courtesy notification, so it doesn't affect anyone's bill. It has no impact on billing. It has no impact on the technology.
But just to be really clear, what caused it to do, what caused the error? Is this a human error? Is there an error in the system? Because people are ticked off about it, and it does cost them because some people went out and got plumbers to come in and look. So
They did.
paid that.
Yes, and I have talked to some customers yesterday as well as this morning, and we understand the frustration, and it's very exciting that they're being proactive to try to get these things fixed. Unfortunately, it was a human error that pulled this report incorrectly. So we're putting in additional safe checks. It passed all of our safe checks already because we already had them in place. It just happened to be the reports that were QA/QC'd were correct. It was within our parameters of percent of customers we'd been seeing each month. It was just an unfortunate situation. We've put additional safe checks, safeguards in place so that this shouldn't occur again.
So what happens with when someone we have a human error, somebody's made a mistake. What are the ramifications for that person? How are we holding people accountable for what's happening?
Yeah. So we've already talked to this individual. We're working through it. We're putting in additional safe checks. He did all of the QA/QC that was in there. It just
I'm
happened
sorry,
that
he did all the what?
the quality assurance checks.
Okay.
So it was in the parameters within the percentage of the population we expected very closely. Everyone that was pulled and checked was correct, just happened to be within the percentage that were accurate. It was just unfortunate that it slipped through. So we're going to be checking a higher percentage. And this is something that we're doing manually now because we don't have the portal available. When the portal's available, this will be built in through the system and there will not be human intervention.
I'm just thinking through this.
Yeah, please.
So, because I thought maybe I'd hear that it was a training gap, but it wasn't. They knew exactly what to do, just for whatever reason, and the existing back up the checks, they were all met, and so now we're just adding additional checks to.
Correct. And so it's not gonna affect their bill. I understand it can be confusing to customers and frustrating. We've been working through that. We've been trying to be as proactive and respond as quickly as possible once we knew we had the correspondence out within 12 hours. So, these mistakes do happen and we're trying our best to rectify the situation.
And this role is obsolete once we have the user portal, right?
Correct. So the user portal will have no human interaction to get those notifications direct to the customer.
And when does that go up?
We're hoping that's going to go up within the next few weeks. We're in the final user acceptance testing, and they're doing the final integration sprint on the IT side, and then it should be live. Okay. On the positive note, these letters have been successful historically. We have over 40% of the customers that have received a letter have fixed the leak within the first 2 weeks. And those customers that have fixed their leak have had an average savings of $104 per bill. This is the new portal the new customer account experience that we're all very excited about. It still has all of the easy bill pay features, online bill pay that we're used to. You can link those multiple accounts. You can see your meter read history. And those outage alerts are very important. So not only do you have leak alerts, but we can actually pinpoint a specific outage alert to a group of people. So instead of just having a blanket communication that's only for maybe a potential neighborhood, we can actually communicate directly with those customers. We are going to have to register each customer. So when we swap over, all of our existing customers will get an email on how to re-register your account. Or if they go to try to sign in, it'll automatically direct them to re-register. So that we're going to be pushing communications with all of our population because we really want to get as many users as possible onto this new tool coming in about a month. So there's a lot of screens and it's very exciting. We're going to be having some demonstrations for y'all on what this portal looks like and all of the features and functions that it can have. But it's not just what we're used to in regards to seeing PDFs of billing. It also provides, those leak alerts, which always will be a banner on the account, but customers can opt in. They can email, they can text, or they can get a phone call if they prefer, especially for those big events. They can set those parameters. If they want to know, hey, a pipe burst, it might be a phone call, so they can know and protect their property. It also can compare your usage to similar households. So based on your meter size, a household is set up on your profile, but you can configure it. So if, let's say, your household has 8 family members and you want to add all 8, it can say, based on how many people are living in this house, this is what you should expect. This is what the average user will use. After you've had your smart meter for over a year, it will also compare you to your historical usage with your smart meter data. There's also a lot of really good tips and tricks on water conservation, how you can look at water in a different perspective, and it walks you through all those options. Another very exciting thing about this technology, about smart meters, is our Ally meters. We do plan on starting to install our Ally meters in Q4 of this year. So we in the program call these our super smart meters, but basically it's a smart meter that also has pressure and temperature monitoring, and these will be spread out in 6% of the locations throughout our city. What this information does, it will map out what we're seeing, and it basically maps out what you see underground and any trends that you wouldn't be able to see until right now they burst out of the street. Now we can see if there's something unusual happening. So it allows us to be proactive and prioritize those infrastructure upgrades before it's in a failure state.
So this had come up before a few times, so I think this is the first time for this presentation when I saw. So the benefits of what I was calling the smarter meter, now I can call it the ally meter, is that we get a more macro approach to more environmental, what's going on. We don't have any additional intrinsic benefit for the particular account holder, right? Or do we? And I missed that part.
So it's the same benefits that a normal customer would
Right,
have.
right.
What would potentially be different for a customer that would have one of these is, like, for example, what Houston, Texas used these for. They had allies out before they had those 2 weeks of freezes. And so what they were able to do is they were able to notify customers when a pipe burst in their house, and it had to do with the temperature. So when the temperature was coming to a certain degree, they sent out notification to those customers like ahead of time. So there are ways you can use the data creatively, especially in communications with customers, but it's really, really beneficial to us as a utility because we can really see what's going on and not just how we're using water, but what that pressure fluctuation looks like throughout the system. And again, we just are going to urge everyone when the portal's up, we really want everyone to sign up. Those, localized advisories and communications are going to be so important so that people can hear immediately from us and anything that's going on. Again, just so y'all could see it a little bit bigger. These are really important metrics and something that, is something that you don't know until you see these numbers and see what these impacts can really be. Those leaks and how those can add up so quickly on your bill. It's amazing how those add up. One of our employees here was asking about filling up his kiddie pool. Did it pick it up? What did that look like? So we knew the size of his kiddie pool. He used 1,100 gallons. The meter, if it was 2 feet exactly, the meter picked up 1,083 gallons. So we knew it cost him $14 approximately to fill up that kiddie pool. And the meter was able to pick it up. So now that we have this granular data, we can really talk to customers about how their water usage can impact their bill. Another thing that's interesting when we talk to customers is the difference between a residential bill and a commercial bill. So what that means is all of our fee structure is the same regardless of the type of customer that you are. It's only based on your meter size. So what we find is most residential bills are smaller meter sizes, and so on average about half of your bill tends to be usage and half of your bill tends to be those fees, which does include the city's sanitation fee. Okay, when you look at your commercial customers, those larger meters, because they're using so much more water and so much more water is going through that meter, 96% of their bill is based on usage. And so when you have these changes in accuracy, there's a much bigger impact on a commercial bill when your accuracy increases versus a residential bill.
Is all this online already?
Yes, so we have all these metrics online. We have handouts that we provide at every neighborhood association meeting. We put these in emails to any customers that has questions. So we do have all this information there.
I'm gonna stop brushing my teeth.
Just turn off the water when you're brushing your teeth, right? And guys, there's really easy ways that we can think about it. I think about it now too. I used to leave the water running when I'm brushing my teeth. Now I'm teaching my kids, always turn it off, right? So it's important. It's good to know. Any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
What unexpected problems, if any, have you run into, Rebecca? Because I know you all did a lot of planning around this, but are we getting big sabotage? I've heard some things about people sabotaging the meters.
So we have had some instances where customers have flipped the meter around. We know immediately now. We're not waiting for someone to physically see it.
What does that mean, they flipped it around?
So they actually, plumbers have taken them out and flipped them around. Sometimes we found it's on purpose. Sometimes we found it's not. It's just an error. It's a really easy thing to do. They look the same. You just have to see the arrow, right? But generally, we've had a lot of really good feedback from customers. They're excited that we can see the data. We can show them exactly how they're using water. We've been talking to customers a lot about not lifting up their lid. If they lift their lid, there's components inside that can be broken. You know, it's not on purpose, it's an error, so we're trying to push that communication, like, please don't lift your lid. We can get you the reads immediately, we can talk through it with you, and soon we're gonna have the customer portal, so they can see it themselves. But generally, we've had a lot of really good feedback. People are excited with the direction that we're going.
Can you walk through the, so in my mind, I want to make sure I'm accurately understanding the user experience when the portal's up and running. I want to know, how real time is our data? Is it 20-minute delay, a few hours delay? Is it, you know, if there's a cracked pipe, am I getting a text push because I signed up, you know,
Right.
within the hour, or
Yes.
what does that look like?
So if you're looking like normal usage, we get usage sent up through the system every 4 hours.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll have 4 hours of hourly data that comes up. It takes about 5 minutes from the time it gets sent up to be live on your portal. That's what that integration looks like.
Okay.
So this is normal. If you're changing account information, that happens overnight. So let's say you change your email and phone number. That will be refreshed the next day. Now let's talk about unusual events. Leaks, pipe burst, anything like that. That's an automatic signal that gets sent up. So you will get that information within 5 minutes.
Okay.
Rebecca, let me go back to my first question. If the increase in some people getting inaccurate bills is not caused by smart meter malfunction, are we talking now still about human error, the system, computer system software? What's the answer for that when people ask, why am I still getting an incorrect bill and I have a smart meter? What do I say?
Firstly, they shouldn't be, and if they are, we want to hear from them. They can email us at smartmetering@swbno.org so that we can get it rectified. That's the first thing. We want to hear if they think something's incorrect. So smartmetering@swbno.org, we want to hear about it so that we can get it fixed without someone having to go through a cumbersome process. The second thing is that we're doing 100% bill check on every smart meter that goes out the door. So about 12% of every bill cycle gets held and manually reviewed from our parameters. So these are being looked at by about 3 steps before they go out the door. So nothing unexpected should be coming.
I'm sorry, did you say everybody's gets reviewed or 12%? I just got lost on that.
So we do 100% gets one manual review, every single bill.
Okay,
12% actually go through 3 different groups
okay.
to make sure that everything's as it needs to be. It goes first through the billing review, then through the smart meter data review, and then through the field review. So this is a really heavy bill check because we know historically we haven't been where we need to be. So that's why we're so heavy in these reviews.
And I guess in fairness, I should ask, is it also possible that the incorrect bills that are sent to customers may not be residents that have a smart meter? It still may be the old meter that's in place. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, and one of the important things when you're talking to customers is if their meter number has an A or a B in front of it, that's an old meter. If it's just a number, that's a smart meter. And so that's one way that they can look and check on their bill. But if they have any questions, we're happy to look into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other problems, issues? Because I really want to know about them if there are.
We've had questions about lifting the lids. People are a little bit surprised by how much water they use that weren't picked up by their old meter. So we're having a lot of questions with how could my bill be this much? But what we found is when we walk through with these customers, the usage, they understand what it looks like. I know one thing we've talked about previously is irrigation meters. I know you went through that process. We're talking with a lot of customers about irrigation meters and how, you know, those can be beneficial because an irrigation meter doesn't have sewer charges associated with it and doesn't have trash associated with it. So there's overall cost savings over a certain amount of time if you irrigate your yard a lot.
Anything else? Do we have a dedicated customer service team for the smart meters?
So right now, we have 2 people dedicated just to speaking with smart meter customers, but we do train the customer service staff every week on any smart meter concerns, questions that they're having come up, and then we have 4 super users that we call them in the customer service team of the supervising staff, and so they have a direct line to us and can walk through any questions that arise.
Do they still have to go through, I mean, the regular number for customer service? Because, I mean, I had to wait, this isn't your issue, but I gave up after a half-hour hold the other day. And so I was wondering if we have an ability with the smart meters to have a certain line that they call that gets them out of that mess.
Phone line right now, but if they do email, our response time is usually 12 to 24 hours, so it's pretty quick. And if someone did want to talk on the phone, we do set up conference calls so we can talk them through anything going on.
Yeah, anything?
Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
And now we have, the next topic is backflow prevention program update, and it's with 9 Harrison and Ann Wilson.
Okay.
Just waiting for Oh, you're just waiting for your
Beautiful slides.
Yeah, they're waiting for the slides.
Who's in charge here?
Oh, wow. Wow.
Learning something every day. Good morning, everybody. I know that you've probably seen these slides a couple of times, and I will try and wow you with my personality instead. So let's do a little refresher. Backflow obviously occurs when any kind of contaminated water flows backward into our clean drinking water mains. This often happens if we have a change in water pressure or a drop in water pressure, and as we all know, that happens every once in a while here in Orleans Parish. So what that looks like is, for example, if you have a fire suppression line in a building, all that water sits in those fire suppression lines for a long time, and when you have a drop in pressure on the street, all that brown water can get pulled back into our drinking water main. And obviously we don't want that because that water at that point is contaminated and it's not potable anymore. Another source of contaminated water that's fairly common are those pesky irrigation systems, since the in-ground sprinkler heads are open to the atmosphere. If you ever have weather and you have a lawn that's pretty soaked and we have a drop in pressure, that can facilitate bacteria entering our drinking water, and we don't want that. So these connections are called cross connections, and that is any connection you have between our nice, freshly treated, potable SWEBNODE water and any other outside source. So that's what we would call a cross connection. That can be boilers or chillers, irrigation system, fire, water, and a whole lot of other things as well. We want to make sure that everybody can trust that their drinking water is safe. So what we do at the SWEBNODE backflow section is we identify all of these cross connections, and we encourage our customers to either eliminate them completely, or they have to install backflow preventers to make sure that we can maintain that potable, safe drinking water. We keep track of all the cross connections, and we also keep track of all of the backflow assemblies that are installed in our parish. So, and that is something that's required of us to do per the LDH. So what are backflow preventers? They are mechanical devices. Almost all of them function with a double check system. Some of them can vent the water to the atmosphere. That's the highest level of protection you can get. And they need to be tested annually. That is also part of the state sanitary code to make sure that they're operational. So we keep track of that. We keep track of everybody's annual test date. What we wanted to brief you guys a little bit on today is a little bit of our process and our progress in trying to maintain compliance with these rules from the state sanitary code and from the LDH. What we currently do is give the customer 3 notices. They get a reminder 60 days prior to their due date, and then they get a second notice 1 day past their due date. And then we give them a third notice 30 days past their due date, telling them that they need to get their testing done. After this, we'll go towards documented phone calls or site visits. We'll issue warning notices. We'll try and obtain contact information. A lot of the times we have to do a little bit of research and digging to find the right person, especially on these commercial accounts where the actual company that owns the building might not even be in the state. So there's a little bit of research happening there to find the right people to get to achieve the compliance. This year, we have focused heavily on educating our customers. We are still in our infancy of having this program in-house, so we have focused a lot on going out to the customer, explaining why this is important and what their responsibilities are to do. For our enforcement, currently we have about 6,300 registered assemblies in Orleans Parish that we know of. Part of our job is also to go out and survey every single water account every 5 years. And as you can imagine, with a parish of 140,000 water accounts, that is a pretty big undertaking. We have gone through about 40% of our commercial accounts, which is what we've been focusing on mostly this first year, due to them being our highest users and often having the highest amount of cross connections. In February of this year, we started looking at our enforcement actions. At that point, we still had about 2,700 assemblies that hadn't been tested yet. So we started with our site visits and with our documented phone calls, educating our customers, and about 49% of those assemblies achieved compliance with the current enforcement procedures. It was a lot of work, a lot of man-hours spent going to these businesses and often having to hunt someone else down that is actually responsible for the facility maintenance, and so on and so forth. So in September of this year, we still have about 2,000 assemblies that are out of compliance, and I know those numbers might seem a little conflicting. However, assemblies get added every single day as we go out and survey. So this is kind of where we're at right now. We have 68% overall compliance. Out of every registered assembly, 68% have had their annual test done, and the other ones are still out of compliance. As you can see, our biggest offenders are going to be our small commercial accounts and our large commercial accounts. Again, most of the time, this is not due to any type of malice. It's lack of education, not getting the right information readily. We've run into some issues with the correspondence going straight to whoever is listed on the water accounts, and that's not always who needs to get this information. Sometimes it is a company that's up in a different state, or it is someone that's been on the account bill for 10 years and is no longer there. So that is something that we're working through. We're trying to gather as much contact information as possible from these customers so that we can do a better job with actually getting to them and informing them what needs to be done.
Why isn't the person who's getting the bill responsible for dealing with that in their own organization? Why is that on us?
Technically, it should be the owner of the building and the owner of the backflow preventer. And that is not always the person that's on the account, especially when you have these multi-commercial buildings where you're just renting a tenant space. At that point, technically, it's on the owner of that strip mall or wherever, this commercial building to facilitate the testing. But the letter will go to the tenant that signed up for the water. So that's been another issue, finding whoever is actually owns the building, owns the backflow preventer, and not just the person that sits on the water bill.
Do we issue any type of certificate or digitally or physically? I'm imagining like an elevator. We'll say, hey, we've been inspected, and all the pertinent data that anyone needs to source is there on the certificate. Have we thought through that process of, because what we're saying is, it seems like it's an anomaly, but you seem to be getting accounts where there's a disconnect between the data that we have and the contact for the person that we need, and then we're investigating versus them having the responsibility to complete and bring us the data. Am I hearing that correctly?
Sort of. The tests are done by a plumber.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot go and tell you, hey, this plumber is going to come here and do this for you, and he's going to bill you for this. So it always has to come from the customer to get that certificate that they did their testing, and then they submit it to us. And so we have it on file that they did their test for that year. It should be, and it is wholly on the customer to get this done. However, since this is a new program and we have done a good job lately with educating our customers. The years before that, we weren't great at it. So at this point, we've focused heartily on educating people. And I agree with you. It is very much on the customer to do this, but we've had to do a lot of just to get the person that is in charge of this.
Right.
Once we get that person, they're usually very compliant.
Yeah.
So it is not of any type of malice that
Right.
they're avoiding to do this, but it is, especially for some of these bigger companies, they might hire somebody, a Walmart might hire somebody from South Carolina that does all the Walmarts in the South region. So it has taken a lot out of us to get this done, but I'm fairly confident that this is first 2-year kind of issues, and
Yeah.
once everybody's on the same
I think
wavelength.
you're doing amazing
Yeah,
work.
and a number of plumbers will actually hang a tag on the assembly saying that it passed and also have the date that it has to be done the following year.
Right.
And some of these assemblies are in boiler rooms and, cooling towers, and some are at the meter. And so it's not, the elevator is a great idea, but we all know where that is and we all in it. But a lot of these assemblies are tucked away in,
Well, I don't mean, physically in there,
Yeah.
but just, like you said, we've got to figure out a way. Everybody wants to do the same thing. We don't want to have you guys chasing down who
Right.
owns that strip mall.
So our next step for education outreach will be to go out and speak to industry-specific organizations. And so that's our next outreach, because that will then actually include the large and the small commercial
Yeah.
buildings and operations, as well as the multifamily and also the hotel and restaurant industries. So that will be our
That
next
will
step.
be a good- Yeah.
And we think that because of that next step of outreach education, our percentages of compliance will definitely increase, because our education will change, our outreach education will change.
I love it. Sounds good.
And another thing that we're planning on doing with our surveys is that we're developing a new survey sheet for every time they go out there. They're meeting with whoever's supposed to be there, and we will have manager, facility manager, owner sign off and have all of their contact information, including email, phone numbers, preferred mailing address if it's different from what we have on file. We'll educate them once we've done the inspection on this is what needs to be installed, this is what needs to be tested, and my surveyor will sign at the bottom, and so will the customer,
Yeah.
knowing that they understood what needed to happen and that they've given us the contact information so that
That
we can
sounds
email
solid.
them.
Thank you.
So for our action plan moving forward is that we wanted to have a little bit more of a streamlined enforcement process, and we're going to be utilizing notices of violation a little bit more heavily. So our proposed process is as follows. We'll do 2 letter notices, and they will act just as reminders. So 60 days prior to the due date, you'll get a reminder that your annual assembly test is due or coming up. Second reminder will be 30 days prior to that due date. 5 days past your due date, you will either get a site visit or a documented phone call. The phone call is if we have that information on file and someone has spoken with this customer previously. If not, they will get a site visit. And we will obtain all of the contact information at that site visit if we don't already have it in our system. That site visit will count down the clock for them to have 10 days to either have their assembly tested or provide proof that a test has been scheduled. And then we will verify that with the plumber that they have chosen to do the work for them. 15 days past due, if there's been no contact, nothing, we haven't heard of a plumber that has been contracted to do this work, we'll start moving towards notice of violation. And the customer will be notified via certified mail of this violation and given 10 days to comply.
okay, so once the customer gets that notice of violation, it will list all of the state code and our plumbing code violations. in a chart. It will explain what they haven't done. So most of the time, it's they have not performed that annual test, or in some cases, they have not installed a backflow assembly to address a hazard that was identified during the survey process. And if they do not respond within 10 days, we will move to a pre-show cause hearing, or it's more of a pre-show cause meeting. The environmental department, along with legal, will meet with the customer either in person or virtually and outline those violations that are stated in the NOV. We explain to the customer what the potential fines or penalties would be, because we have an enforcement response plan, which has a numeric system of assigning points for the number of assemblies that have not been tested, the length of time that they've been out of compliance. So someone who has not had their device tested and they're 30 days late is going to have fewer points and a lower penalty or fine than someone who has not complied for 6 months or a year. And so the customer sees that, they know that I'm going to have to pay this penalty, which is going to be finalized and assessed by a hearing officer, or they see the evidence that we have, and normally they will comply and schedule that test. And this is the same process that we use in the environmental department for violations to our pre-treatment program, which is the sanitary sewer, fats, oil, and grease permitting for grease traps. It's the same process we use for illicit discharges or illegal discharges to our storm drainage system. And in this case, with the backflow, the documentation is very straightforward with the reminders and the notices that were sent out, as well as our documented phone calls, our on-site visits with warning notices, and the certified mail of the NOV. So we're not, with our other programs, having to do sample analysis, photos of the noncompliance. So when a customer then looks at what they have to do, and an average backflow test is negotiated with the plumber, could be $200 to $400. And once I hire that plumber and get that scheduled and adhere to the date that the plumber says that he can get to that and have it done, then that penalty, which could be several $100s, which would be assessed by the hearing officer, we never get to that point. And most people can look at the economics and say, I need to have this scheduled and move forward. If, for instance, we have a customer that will not have the test performed, will not adhere to the regulation, both state and through the plumbing code, then we will have, through the hearing officer, a disruption of service, or their water terminated, their water service terminated. And that would go through the due process as well. Environmental, as well as the backflow section, we really never have gotten to the point where we have to terminate water service, usually through our negotiation during the pre-show cause meeting, as well as a show cause hearing. The customer comes into compliance with whatever regulation that they have failed to comply with. We also have in our plumbing code, which is required by state code, if we have an emergency situation, a highly documented hazard to our drinking water system because of this cross connection, we do have the ability to terminate water usage immediately. So, but these instances are for noncompliance of testing and installing that backflow assembly and performing a test once it's installed.
Why do we turn it back on when they have a test date as opposed to scheduled, as opposed to when they actually do the test?
Because you have to have the water turned on in order to test it.
Okay.
Yes, yes. But That's only for the extreme cases where they have refused. In most cases, once they've hired a plumber and the plumber verifies with the backflow section that they are hired, and here is the tentative date that we are going to have it tested, then the water service is not interrupted, and they just adhere to those dates. We have used these for other customers, this what we call agreements. And we have customers that email us on the weekend that it's delayed because of some circumstance or like the hurricane last week. And so we're getting a lot of communication. They want us to know they're on it and that they're going to comply, but had to delay it for a few days and we look at the reason and we email them back, we agree, and we put that new date in our system and communicate to them. So we're checking all those due dates. The Aqua Resource software is very good. It's real time. The plumber is filing permits and uploading those tests. So there's no exchange of mail or mailing in a test and not receiving it. This is all very real time, so we know exactly who's in compliance and who's not.
Questions, anybody? Okay.
I think that's
Well,
all.
thank
of
you
it.
very much for your report. And are there any public comments?
Are there any public comments virtually or, okay,
Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're now adjourned.